for the ride and say, like, if things don't go quite as well as expected, hopefully you cheer us on and, like, but it's full disclosure. It's just telling you what we know as best we know it. And sometimes we'll be wrong. But I think it's more interesting to be along for the ride and not try to pretend everything's super great. There's always issues. Space is hard, obviously. It's like very few countries have gone to orbit. It had created an orbital vehicle. Well, I guess really just 3. So this is a very hard thing, and so this is it's like I hope, like, as we go along, there's just a lot of people working super hard at SpaceX and NASA and our suppliers, just doing their best, and so those support will be good. So there's so in the next few weeks we'll be testing the propulsion system, confirm that changes made were successful. But it's a test, so it could go wrong, could go right. We'll be doing a lot of tests in the Mach 3 parachutes. We'll keep the public informed, so you'll know what goes wrong and what goes right, and then what we're doing about it. Those are the only 2 items that I'm aware of, although that SpaceX is aware of, that put the schedule at risk. But there may be other things that we discover. This is also important to bear in mind. You do not know what you do not know, to the best of our knowledge right now, testing will be complete and hardware will be at the Cape by the end of December. But this may be wrong. Important. This could be wrong. This is what appears to be the case right now. So then there's some period of time after that, as the administrator was alluding to, where SpaceX and NASA and all our supplier partners will need to get together, review all of the test data exhaustively, or sort of triple, quadruple check everything, and just make sure, is there anything we've overlooked? Is there anything that could possibly improve the probability of safety by any amount? And if there is, we will delay the launch without hesitation and make those changes. And the only thing we wouldn't do is if there's a change where the cure may be worse than the disease or comparable, then it's not worth breaking configuration unless the cure is very obviously better than the disease. This is they're telling exactly what I think, basically. But I do want to emphasize, this is not like, it's just, if the testing is complete and the hardware is, at the Cape, is this like some kind of like massive bureaucracy that's delaying things? Like it is not. It is very important for everyone involved to go through all the data and then look at it again and just confirm, like, everything possible to ensure that the astronauts will be safe. This is a lot of homework, basically. And then only at that point would we launch. Only at that point. But I think it'll be very exciting to see the hardware at the Cape, and very exciting to see these tests complete. And we'll make sure you're kept up to speed on all of the, everything we learn, good or bad. So you'll go straight through.
Hi, I think you may have answered my question partially, but I want to put it to you a little more directly, Administrator Bridenstine. Given everything that still needs to happen before the crew can actually be delivered, how soon do you think that you will be ready to launch a manned mission with the Crew Dragon? I think you said maybe as soon as early part of next year.
If everything goes according to plan, it would be in the first quarter of next year. But remember, and this is the important thing, that we have to get right on messaging. there is still there are still things that we can learn or could learn that could be challenging that we have to resolve. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I don't know. That's why we test. We have two very important tests coming up, plus a whole lot of drop tests for parachutes. Depending on what we learn in those tests will determine whether or not we're going to be able to launch in the first part of next year. But if we learn what we think we're going to learn, we should be ready in the first part of next year. If something comes up that we didn't know, then it could be longer than that. But this is what Elon was talking about, which I think you said very well. Regardless of whether we make it in the first part of next year is less relevant than the fact that we will make it. And when we do make it, between now and then, we need your support. And I think that's pretty clear what Elon was getting at. This is a big deal for our country. We can't get it wrong, and in fact, we have to get it right. And so I think these are key messages that we believe it can be done in the first quarter of next year, but we are not going to take any undue risk because the safety of our astronauts and the success of the mission is the highest priority. And remember, this first flight with crew is a test flight. Even the flight itself is a test flight, and it is done with test pilots, one Marine and one Air Force test pilots that work for NASA, who will be evaluating the system itself so that we can go from development to operations. So, and getting to that operational phase is where we want to be. And the sooner we can get there, the better, but we are not going to rush it. We want to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, I should say also, we are in production with Crew Dragon. So, once this vehicle is done, then we will start building the next one, and we expect to be making Dragon version 2 or Crew Dragon on approximately every 3 or 4 months. So there'll be a number of the craft that are in work. So 3 or 4 months time, there'll be another Dragon that's also ready to go, because we want to get into a cadence, as Jim was saying, of operational flights to the space station. I think it's been 8 years since the United States was able to send astronauts to orbit. This is a travesty, to be totally frank. We need to get back to.
But it's going to be a great day.
It's going to be a great day, yes. But we've got to get this done, So it's a super big deal. And then we'll get into a cadence of regular launches next year. Yeah, it'll be great.
We have a question from NASA Watch, Keith Cowling. He writes, "You are both Star Wars fans. Elon built X-Wing fighters and Jim flies them. Instead of the differences we've been hearing about recently, what things do SpaceX and NASA and you as an individual share in common when it comes to the future uses of space, and how will you leverage these common interests?"
So you build X-Wing fighters, and I fly them. That's cool. That's great. I like that. I'm liking this already. A couple of things. Number one, there's no need for wings in space, so I think that's a difference.
Yes, that is true.
And if you look at how the X-Wing fighter is thrusted, I'm guessing, I don't know, but I'm guessing it might be nuclear electric propulsion based on the design of the vehicle. But again, I don't know how the X-Wing is designed. But I will tell you that we as an agency, we want to go to Mars and even beyond. And of course, we're very excited about the excitement that Elon is bringing to this, that SpaceX is bringing to this idea of humans expanding throughout the solar system. That is something that I think both of us share deeply as a vision that we want to be able to achieve. And I think that is achievable. Now, going back to the X-Wing fighter, in order to achieve that for the long term and be successful, we're going to need to start making investments in nuclear thermal propulsion and nuclear electric. And of course, we've been involved in the Vassamere propulsion system as a development capability for a number of years, which is nuclear electric. The idea being that we need to get places faster. And NASA has an interest in that. But I think more than anything, NASA has a keen interest in human exploration. Elon Musk and SpaceX, they've done a great job at inspiring not just the nation, but the world in that vision. And I think the partnership is going to enable us to do that.
I think we both obviously love space a lot, for sure. Space is one of those things that I think almost everyone is inspired by. And if you asked people what was the most inspiring event in history, it was probably landing on the moon. If you ask people anywhere, I'd say. So, it's just something that people get around the world can get super fired up about and get excited about the future. Future where we're a spacefaring civilization out there among the stars is inspiring to people everywhere in the world.
Hi, Ted Chen from KNBC. Back to the topic of timeline and delivery. Can you both address the recent public exchange regarding the progress of Crew Dragon, in particular, Ms. Bridenstine, your tweet implying that progress has been compromised somehow by spaceship?
Yeah, so as the NASA administrator, I have been focused on returning to realism when it comes to cost and schedule. And a lot of our programs have not been meeting cost and schedule. And this has been developing over time. And a lot of these programs are, 5 years old, 10 years old, that kind of thing. And so what we're trying to do is get back to a day where we have realistic cost and schedule. So I was signaling, and I haven't done it just to SpaceX, but to all of our contractors, that we need more realism built into the development timelines. To be clear, the development timelines are development timelines. This is not operational yet, it is development, which means we are learning. And when you learn, timelines don't always go according to plan. So that I am very clear on that. It is also true that if you go back to 2012, 2013, 2014, there was a day we had a commercial crew program underway, and the funding got cut. And of course, the timelines never changed, but the funding got cut. And so there are consequences when the budget doesn't meet the vision. The budget doesn't meet the revenue. And the history of that has put us in a position, and it's not just the commercial crew program, it's a lot of NASA's programs. And I am trying to make sure that if we're putting out key messages about what we're capable of achieving, that we are matching it with budgets. That's been a high priority of mine. I just want to make sure that we are focused on the number one highest priority for our country right now, because I'm the one that has to go make sure that we're buying seats, Russian Soyuz seats to keep a presence on the International Space Station. A couple of weeks ago, I was out in Japan. We believe that there is a strong probability that they will have an astronaut on the International Space Station during the Olympics. But there is also a possibility if things don't go according to plan, that they will not. That's a challenge for me as the NASA administrator as I try to encourage our international partners to invest more than they ever have before in our effort to get to the moon sustainably. In other words, we want to go to the moon to stay. So in order to achieve the diplomatic goals and the strategic goals of our country, to have our international partners with us in a coalition of nations to go to the moon to stay, in order to achieve that, we have to have credibility in our programs. And right now, the one program that we need the most credibility in the fastest is the commercial crew program. And SpaceX is a big part of that. So I think those are all important takeaways.
I mean, it's important to, these are just historical facts. It's not just a statement of fact. The SpaceX commercial crew program is within 1% of the budget. So it's right on budget. As Jim was alluding to, the NASA request for commercial crew for several years was substantially reduced by Congress. I think in some cases by 50%. So it's pretty hard to stay on schedule if you've got half as much money. But we didn't spend more money; it just took longer. The same years that commercial crew was dramatically underfunded. Some other unmentioned programs were overfunded, but they were, yeah. So anyway, the larger point is we're going to get this done. We're going to get done soon. We're going to get done right.
Hi, Grant Blaisdell, co-creator of Copernic Space. This is a question that alludes to two things that both of you touched. There's going to be a lot of sensitive and valuable IP being shared between you guys, but also in the future collaborations. You brought up Russia, for example. And we've seen NASA recently begin engaging with new tech, like blockchain technology, seemingly mainly to improve data-related trust and security. Mr. Musk, I know you're interested in this tech as well. My question is NASA and this collaboration further looking to use this sort of tech to not only securely transfer and collaborate around this valuable IP, but also to use it to better commercialize this IP on the private market as the market continues to digitize and privatize, especially for NASA. I think that would be cool. And also funding, how this relates to allowing the American public fund NASA projects that aren't hitting their budgets, let's say, targets.
Yeah, so there's a lot in that question, but I think that, no, you're good. The fundamental thing is that NASA will not share anybody's IP. If it is your IP, it is your IP. What we will do is we will learn from your tests, your analysis. We will take those lessons learned and apply those lessons learned to our other partners in a way that does not disclose your design, your systems, those kind of things. But to the extent we do that, it is for a reason. It is because we have to make sure that we are safely flying people. Because there is nothing more precious to us than the cargo which is our astronauts. So that has to be, I think, a keen awareness for us. If SpaceX learns something with parachutes, if they learn something with a launch abort system, if it's a materials issue, we need to be able to share that. And SpaceX has been fantastic about allowing us to do that without giving up, design specifications.
Actually, I want to be clear. NASA can share all of our IP with anyone NASA wants. There you go. Just have it all and share it with anyone.
But to the extent, ultimately, and we appreciate that.
Yeah,
That's very meaningful.
Yeah.
But there is IP that is in the interest of the nation that we cannot be sharing with people or countries that would not have our interests at heart. And that's when it comes to making sure that we have our information technology secure and we have all the capabilities necessary to protect some very valuable technology.
You would have time for one more question.
Just a quick follow-up, because you had mentioned that you had spent within 1% of the commercial crew budget allotted. And so I'm curious, of that $2.6 billion originally allotted, did you receive all of it? And have there been any points where you have had to spend SpaceX resources, on your own to further the Crew Dragon program?
Yeah, the 1% is the as reported. This is like NASA has to report these numbers to Congress, and it's public information. So it's just not like top secret. And this is the last. I was just literally informed by the NASA program manager. Yeah, you're within 1%. I'm like, great, that's cool. And we've spent actually, I think, quite a lot more than expected. Probably on the order of hundreds of millions of dollars more. Yeah.
So for the contracts, it's based on milestone payments, and when milestones are achieved, payments are made. And of course, our contractors make proposals, and then we award based on those proposals. So all of that was agreed to up front. It is absolutely true that there were certain years early on that set us back because we weren't adequately funded. We're past that. We are now focused like a laser on the right things to achieve the end state that we both desire, which is American astronauts launching on American rockets. I know this is the last question, but I just want to say a few more things in closing, and that is this. I want people to make no mistake that NASA has an interest in seeing Starship be successful. We have been a partner on Starship, a non-exchange of funds kind of partner when it comes to aerodynamics and when it comes to testing and test facilities. Certainly when it comes to how we do, think about the future where maybe the Starship will be flying in deep space outside of Earth's orbit. And if that day comes, they're going to have to communicate back to Earth. So we have been working with SpaceX to enable and test deep space communication capability using NASA's deep space network. We in fact are using our resources at Mars right now. We have orbiters around Mars, we have a lander, we have a rover on Mars. We task those resources to find where would be the best places should Starship be successful in going to Mars. Where would be the best places to go where they would have resources, in situ resource utilization available to them. That's another capability that NASA has been working to support SpaceX on Starship. And just this week, might have been last week, I don't know the date specifically, but we did award to SpaceX a contract, what we call a tipping point contract, that will enable Starship to use NASA resources and NASA money to figure out how to transfer fuel in orbit. That's a capability that is in the national interest of the nation, but it's also a capability that enables NASA to go further. And we want partners that are willing and able to invest in that to partner with us, which is what Tipping Point is all about. And they were awarded a contract for that. We believe there is a day coming, whether it's to be clear, we want commercial crew to happen at the earliest possible point. Make no mistake, I hope I've been very clear on that. But we also want all of our commercial partners, to be successful in going further and doing more under an idea where NASA would be one customer of many customers, driving down our costs and increasing our access. One customer of many customers with numerous providers that are competing on cost and innovation. Again, driving down cost and increasing access so that all of us as a nation can do more. And some of our partners are Starship, as I just talked about. Some of our partners are SLS and Orion. And all of us as a nation, we will be able to do more, and they make each other better. And that's a positive thing. But we want all of our partners to be successful, and we are working towards that every day.
All right, thank you for the support. This is, for sure, Dragon and Crew Dragon is absolutely the overwhelming priority. As I've said publicly, is they're maybe 5% of SpaceX resources on Starship. We do think it's something that will be incredibly valuable to NASA in the future and to and really anyone who wants to. I think it will be very important for the future of humanity in space. This is so, we are transitioning into a phase, or very close to transitioning to a phase where we are in series production with the Crew Dragon spacecraft, which means that the engineering team can then work on a new vehicle. So you have design and development, and then you transition design and development to production and operations. But then the design and development team should do something new. This is not a conflict; it's just different teams, and that's what we'll be doing as we complete the testing of Crew Dragon, is transitioning the development team to Starship. Thanks again for your support.
It's an honor. Thank you for having us, and I want to say to all the media here covering this, thank you. We need to create an environment, and SpaceX has been amazing at it, create an environment where the American public, and in fact the world, gets enthusiastic about returning to deep space. I am the first NASA administrator in history, well, at least since we've gone to the moon, I'm the first NASA administrator that doesn't have a memory of where he was or she was when we landed on the moon, because I wasn't alive yet.
Me neither.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I'm 44 years old. We cannot allow another generation to go by without people like us casting a vision that we can, in fact, have a sustainable presence on the moon, that we can, in fact, get to Mars. And because of the media here and all of your coverage of this and other events that we're going to be doing in the future, we're going to be able to do this. And I just want to thank you for having me at this event, and I look forward to, again, launching American astronauts on American rockets from American team. Thank you, SpaceX, for being a great partner.
Thank you.
Normally slippers and pajamas. And the obligatory, hurry up, I'm going to get my son to school, because I do too. It's better with cherry pickers.